This morning, we're honored to have Chuang Suo-Hang from TAITRA to share with us his perspective on the evolving U.S. Taiwan economic relationship. Chuang Suo-Hang is the Vice Chairman of the Taiwan External Trade Development Council, which is Taiwan's primary trade and investment promotion authority. They have 62 offices around the world, including 6 in the United States, if I've correct at last count. 5, okay. Prior to joining TAITRA, Vice Chairman Chuang served as a member of the Legislative Yuan from 2005 to 2008 as a member of the DPP. And before his time in the Legislative Yuan, he served as a spokesman of the Executive Yuan and Vice Chairman of the Overseas Chinese Affairs Committee. He holds a PhD in political science from the University of Southern California, and we're delighted he can be here. In his current position, he travels a lot. I thought I traveled a lot and had a lot of frequent flyer miles. He travels all over the world representing Taiwanese industry and promoting these commercial relationships. After his speech, we're going to have a conversation about the topics he raised, and we're lucky to have with us Wendy Cutler, who is Vice President and Managing Director of the Washington office of the Asia Society's Policy Institute. I'll introduce her further when we get to the discussion, but first join me in welcoming Vice Chairman Chuang.
Good morning. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to be here with you. Thank you, Scott, for the invitation and kind introduction. Thanks to CSIS for having me here and hosting this event to discuss the U.S.-Taiwan economic relationship. And thank you. I also feel extremely honored to have Ms. Wendy Cutler as my commentator. Thank you. Last October and November, I spent 18 days touring around 7 American cities. In Washington, D.C., we had a meeting with Diane Farrell, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Asia in the U.S. Commerce Department. At the meeting, I proposed the idea of Connect USA, Upgrade Taiwan. Connect USA, Upgrade Taiwan. The idea was well received by Commerce Department and the business circle, Taiwanese business circle here in the United States. What do you mean by Connect USA and Upgrade Taiwan? I think there are 3 dimensions to it. First, let's talk about manufacturing and marketing. The US is no doubt the largest consumer market on earth. With free trade agreements with 20 other nations, this FTA provides access to hundreds of millions of additional consumers. And this market is so huge and so competitive that if you can make it here in the United States, you can make it anywhere in the world. The US is also home to first-rate R&D and engineering talent. By utilizing local talents and taking advantage of federal and state investment incentives, and also the competitive land and the utility costs, as well as the latest corporate tax cut from 35% to 21%. These all make the US market an irresistible investment destination for Taiwanese businesses. For example, Canada, one of the world's largest tire companies, has a tech center and the manufacturing plant in Ohio. Ohio, of course, is the R&D center and the heart of the American tire making industry. They produce tires for cars and bicycles locally and sold locally. Canada is a perfect manifestation of Connect USA, Upgrade Taiwan, because they invest here, grow here, and succeed here. This echoes President Trump's message. There has never been a better time to hire, to build, to invest, and to grow in the United States. America is open for business. and we are competitive once again. And the second dimension of Connect USA and Upgrade Taiwan is about innovation. During my previous trip to Silicon Valley in last November, I said to my friends in that area that the development of innovation is so rapid that if you come back 4 months later, the whole field will be beyond your imagination. 4 months later, I did go back to Silicon Valley again, and I visited several startups and accelerators in the area, and I realized that what I said had become a prophecy. We are in the middle of an ever-changing tide of innovation. You have no choice but to try to keep up. And Silicon Valley of the United States is no doubt the capital of startup and innovation of the world. And as the world economy is experiencing paradigm shift with the introduction of cloud computing, IoT, 5G mobile networks, machine learning, AR, VR, and AI, it becomes even more compelling for us to focus on startup because they hold the key to disrupt the old and welcome the new. And so, to connect USA means to connect to the future of innovation. Taiwan is one of the strongest ICT powerhouses in the world. When we connect with the innovation of Silicon Valley, Taiwan together with the US will be the leaders in Industry 4.0, which will surely upgrade Taiwan's industry as a whole and guarantee the long-term success of our partnership. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen planned to revamp the 5+2 innovative industries, such as biomedical, green energy, and the defense industries, represents Taiwan's continuous effort to upgrade its industry. For this is the key to Taiwan's economic future, which is why one of the 5+2 plan is named Asian Silicon Valley, which underscores the importance of such connection. Another key industry in President Tsai's 5+2 smart machinery 5+2 plan is smart machinery industry. This brought me back to another statement that I made in Silicon Valley. I said, in US, you have Silicon Valley, which is home to the most comprehensive startup ecosystem in the world, and in Taiwan, we have Dadu Valley in central Taiwan, which is one of the most comprehensive clusters of smart machinery industry in the world. Together, such connection of the two valleys will ensure America's leading position in Industry 4.0 and at the same time, upgrade Taiwan. The third dimension of Connect USA, Upgrade Taiwan is all about trade. Taiwan is an outward-looking island. We grow our economy based on export and foreign trade. Since the inauguration of President Trump and the recent implementation of his new trade policy, the world has undergone a paradigm shift in trade. President Trump's free, fair, and reciprocal trade paradigm has become a new norm in world trade. And so, perhaps the most agile and the flexible businessmen in the world, Taiwanese businessmen are swiftly adjusting their global business for this new trade paradigm. What are their options? First is to divert their investment or relocate their manufacturing bases to Southeast Asia, as we have already witnessed from the booming success of the new southbound policy last year. The second option is to move their bases back to Taiwan, which was the option chosen by several Taiwanese manufacturing giants in the areas ranging from electronics and the ICT to the textiles and the shoemaking industries. They are all in the process of expanding their assembly lines in Taiwan. The third, and possibly the most rewarding option, is to invest here in the United States. This can be the most rewarding and the most meaningful option because it is triple win option. reduce the trade deficit, create jobs, and increase investment, all three in one. U.S. government data already shows that Taiwan supports more than 322,000 jobs in the U.S. This is also the option that fully reflects the essence of President Trump's free, fair, and reciprocal trade policy. The Select USA Investment Summit this year highlighted this trend. Among all the international delegations, Taiwan led the biggest group to the event, a total of 125 businesses representatives from Taiwan's IT, biotech, electronics, and the steel sectors, as well as many others, come to invest in this land of opportunities. Already, companies such as Formosa Plastics, Foxconn, and the E-United Group have announced plans to invest here in the United States. This trend to connect with the U.S. highlights the fact that we are so far, yet so near, and we are in need of each other, especially in this period of economic uncertainty. Now, let me take a step back in history. In the 1950s, the Taiwan government began to pursue an export-oriented economic strategy, which has been the engine for Taiwan's economic growth ever since. This strategy successfully attracted substantial amounts of international capital investment into Taiwan. This foreign direct investment not only provided capital inflow, but also brought in the technologies and the advanced standards necessary to foster Taiwan's industrial development. For a long time, the U.S. has been the largest source of foreign capital investment in Taiwan. The accumulated FDI by the U.S. in Taiwan from 1952 to 2018 has accounted for $24 billion US, or 15% of total Taiwan's total capital investment. This FDI coming from the U.S. in the 50s and the 80s not only contributed directly to Taiwan's fast-growing economic performance, but also further technological innovation, democratic transformations, and the free market mechanisms. These important investments also laid the foundation for Taiwan's semiconductor industry, which eventually gave rise to global giants such as TSMC, MediaTek, and Foxconn. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, is now the world's largest contract chip maker, operating on a global scale, thanks to the American investment that gave the industry a head start. In the 1980s, the establishment of the Hsinchu Science Park, a science-based industrial park dedicated to high-tech and the R&D, was another success story made possible with the support of U.S. capital investment. The encouragement of investment in the science park reshaped Taiwan's large percentage of manufacturing sector at that time, upgraded it, and gave rise to the Taiwan information service industry. Today, Taiwan can provide the U.S. with the best IC manufacturing and the packaging testing service, while the U.S. continues to supply Taiwan with the world's newest and the best technology, design, branding, and marketing services. Fruitful U.S.-Taiwan partnership like this can be found across numerous industries. Taiwan is a major consumer and customer of U.S. intellectual property rights. In 2016 alone, Taiwan paid $4.47 billion US in fee for using the U.S. intellectual property rights. A country's protection of intellectual property rights signifies its openness and transparency as a free market. American businesses can invest in Taiwan with confidence because of our strong commitment to protect intellectual property rights. Industry leaders such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Qualcomm, I believe just recently, several days ago, and IBM and OZ, the parent company of Yahoo, have all announced plans to build their R&D hubs in Taiwan and to initiate large recruitment projects. The examples of close U.S.-Taiwan cooperation go on and on. I can give you another one. Micron Technology, the U.S. memory chip maker, has built a memory chip cluster in central Taiwan. Much of the equipment used in the facilities were shipped directly from the U.S., which is a perfect example of investment boosting bilateral trade. Tesla, the most famous U.S. electronic car maker, has 70% of its supply chain provided by Taiwanese suppliers. The capacity, technology, and the market access encouraged by American investment in Taiwan is vital for Taiwan's becoming a leading technology hub in the Indo-Pacific. In 2017, Taiwan was ranked as the United States 11th largest trading partner in goods, totaling $64 billion, while the total trade, goods plus services, amounted to $86 billion. Also, according to the figure released by the American Chamber of Commerce in Taipei, in terms of goods imported from the U.S. per capita, Taiwan is at $1,110 per person, one of the highest in the world. This figure is especially impressive considering that Taiwan has no free trade agreement with the U.S. So in sum, Taiwan's story of economic success is the story of upgrade. Our review of Taiwan's economic development history shows that we are always in the process of an endless pursuit of upgrading our industries. And now we are at another historical juncture. At this time, there's one thing we do know, that is, we must take this opportunity to sign a bilateral trade agreement with the United States, our closest partner and friends, with whom we share our core democratic values. Such a BTA will enable us to connect and upgrade. It will embody our shared ideas of freedom, openness, and transparency in economic development, and further solidify our already strong and mutually beneficial economic relationship. In a recent statement by Secretary Mike Pompeo at the Indo-Pacific Business Forum held at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, he spoke of the United States' goal to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific region and the U.S. initiatives to support foundational areas of the future, the digital economy, energy, and the infrastructure, in all of which Taiwan can play a crucial role. I agree 100% with what Secretary Pompeo said about Taiwan in his speech. He said that in Taiwan, economic development went hand in hand with creating an open, democratic society that blossomed into a high-tech powerhouse, looking around the Indo-Pacific region. Which country most closely reflect U.S. values? I think Taiwan is the obvious choice. In Taiwan, we believe that the foundation for economic progress should be based on respect for one's private property, intellectual property, contracts, and the rule of law, not the rule of men, which are all the essential values of a democratic society. When doing business with Taiwanese company, people will know that we, Taiwanese, just like Secretary Pompeo said, value honest contracts, honest terms, and no need for off-the-books mischief. This is what I call the ethics of business, because we believe that economic development without ethics will easily turn into economic aggression that threaten the integrity of one's property and the fruit of one's innovation and the laborious work. And this kind of predatory economic expansion without ethics will turn individuals against each other in any society, and thus strengthen the safety and security of its citizens. And if taken one terrible step further, this aggression can manifest itself externally and strengthen the sovereignty of other nations. Just as stated by Secretary Pompeo in his speech, economic security is national security. And if history is any indication, Taiwan close trade and economic cooperation with the U.S. is essential to achieving broader stability in the region. Taiwan is a model of a developing country which reflects American values based upon the Taiwan Relations Act that was signed in 1979. The United States provides a solid foundation for Taiwan's national security. U.S. Taiwan relations became further strengthened with the recent signing of the Taiwan Travel Act and the National Defense Authorization Act. The peoples of the United States and Taiwan are very much closely connected to each other. We are bonded together by our democratic values. We share a deep economic partnership, and we all love baseball. But something is still missing. We have yet to ink a bilateral trade agreement. So if you ask me, what is my top priority on this trip to Washington, D.C., I will answer in one phrase: the signing of a BTA between Taiwan and the United States. For without a BTA, there's no solid foundation for Taiwan to stand upon in the period of economic uncertainty. So in this moment, I feel entitled to claim, let's go forward with our united strengths. Let's sign a BTA. Let's connect USA, upgrade Taiwan. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Why don't you go over there? Thank you, Vice Chairman Chuang, for an impressive, wide-ranging, comprehensive speech that covered a lot of topics, from individual companies to the free and open Indo-Pacific to bilateral trade relations. We're going to come back to your speech in just a second for questions that I've thought of, but we're fortunate enough to have with us Wendy Cutler to offer some initial commentary. Let me introduce the audience to her, although you could say she needs no introduction because of her major contributions to the U.S. government and the region over so many years. Wendy is Vice President and Managing Director of the Washington office of the Asia Society Policy Institute, which she joined in 2015. In this role, she focuses on building ASPI's presence in Washington, strengthening its outreach as a think tank and to other think tanks, including CSIS, and leads initiatives that address challenges related to trade and women's empowerment in Asia. Prior to her time at ASPI, she served as acting deputy U.S. trade representative, and during her time at USTR, she was responsible for the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, U.S.-China trade relations, the APEC Forum, and the U.S.-India Trade Policy Forum. And she was U.S. Chief Negotiator on the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement and negotiate a wide range of agreements with Japan on such issues as telecommunications, autos, and semiconductors. She has a wealth of experience and a successful record in and out of government. We're delighted to have you here this morning to offer some perspective on the U.S. Taiwan relationship and Vice Chairman Chuang's comments. So thank you so much. Let me turn things to you.
Well, thank you very much, Scott, and thank you to Vice Chairman Chuang for such a great speech. I was reflecting on the title of this event, and I would just maybe add two other words, not just uncertainty, but unpredictability. Every day is a long day in Washington. It's only 10:30. We'll see what the day brings today. I think the Vice Chairman did a really excellent job in giving a snapshot on U.S. Taiwan economic relations, and in particular the tie-ups between our companies and the natural synergies that bring our two economies together. In particular, I was struck by the list of all the U.S. companies that are working so closely with Taiwan's ICT companies, and how together they're providing an important platform for furthering closer ties and promoting innovation. And I like the slogan of Connect USA, Upgrade Taiwan. Whoever thought of that, that's good. And I think it has a future. I thought today, given my background, perhaps I could just offer a few comments in particular with respect to U.S. Taiwan investment and trade ties. And regarding U.S. investment in Taiwan, as the Vice Chairman noted, U.S. investment in Taiwan has really helped propel the Taiwanese economy to what it is today, and it's really provided an important platform for bringing our two economies closer together. In this administration, though, I think we should be focusing on FDI in the United States. And here, I was very heartened to hear that the Taiwanese investment in the United States supports over 300,000 U.S. jobs. That's a big number, and I think it's a number that Taiwan could really do more to publicize and to try and get more credit for. And I imagine they're pretty high-paying jobs as well. I note that some of the recently announced investments by Taiwanese companies, by Formosa Plastics, Foxconn, and the E-United Group, will probably lead to more job creation in the United States. And then I also think of those other 122 companies you probably brought with you on Select USA, so maybe they can invest more and even create more jobs. And I think that's a great narrative for Taiwan in working with the current administration. With respect to trade, I can say I wasn't surprised to hear what your top priority is on your trip. During my days at USTR, when I led the TIFA process for a while, we would repeatedly hear from our Taiwanese colleagues how much they would like to embark on bilateral trade agreement negotiations with the United States. Now, when I was at USTR, we listened to those requests and we offered advice to the Taiwanese, and that was an important first step was to really clean up and address and take care of the outstanding bilateral irritants in the relationship. And when I called USTR earlier this week to get a brief on where things stand, I understand that some of the issues that were outstanding and sensitive then still haven't been resolved. I don't need to, I'm pleased I no longer have to learn all the details, particularly about beef and pork, because there are a lot of details there. But I would just say that I think it's important that those issues are addressed. And why is this important? And first I would say that I'm sure, I would just assure Taiwan's not being singled out here, that this was, really a consistent approach by USTR when looking at free trade agreement partners. And that is that the partner, for a number of reasons, you wanted these issues cleared up. First, it showed that the economy in question really had the political wherewithal and the commitment to deal with very sensitive political issues.
Yes.
And we can see in the NAFTA negotiations today, for example, those are the issues they're dealing with now. And so that's an important kind of early demonstration that the potential partner is prepared and ready and willing to do what it needs to do politically to deal with these issues. Second, it really helps to clear the decks. And so when you're in a bilateral or trilateral, whatever, trade negotiation, we're seeing this in NAFTA, you have enough issues on your plate. And the idea that you're going to bring issues that you haven't resolved to the table as well makes these negotiations even more complex and difficult than they are. And third, and this is really important too, it really helps build stakeholder support for a BTA or an FTA in the United States. You want Congress behind you want stakeholders behind you, and you want the administration behind you. I would say, though, that in this administration, given that very focused on bilateral negotiations, that perhaps there is an opening for Taiwan. And second, Taiwan has many friends in this administration. So I think the combination of the two developments, I think, could help pave the way for a bilateral trade agreement. But in the meantime, I really believe it's important that the U.S. and Taiwan not put all their eggs in that basket. There's a lot that the U.S. and Taiwan could be doing together now in areas like innovation, like advanced technologies, like infrastructure, like the Indo-Pacific initiative. You touched upon all of these issues in your remarks. So I would encourage you and my friends from Taiwan to think about how we can jointly embark on initiatives in these areas. And I believe those will contribute to not only strengthening relations, but maybe ultimately looking at a bilateral trade agreement. So I think with those remarks, I'm going to stop there. And again, thank you for inviting me as a discussant. And I'm really honored to be here. And I really learned a lot from your remarks.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Wendy. We couldn't have had more perfect, well-fitting reaction to the Vice Chairman's speech and to the broader issues. Let me follow up a little bit on Wendy's comments with a couple questions and then turn things over to our audience because we always have a smart group of folks in the Washington policy community who want to engage with our speakers. I guess the first question would be, to go back to your the title of your speech, Connect USA, Upgrade Taiwan. I want to talk about the second half, the Upgrade Taiwan side, and that also dovetails with some of the things Wendy was just saying. You mentioned in the speech this 5+2 plan.
Yes.
And everyone knows about Taiwan's world-class ICT sector.
Yes.
They don't know a lot about the other initiatives, the other industries that Taiwan is working on. Could you say a little bit more about this concept and maybe some of the other areas Taiwan is focusing on in these industries? Because I think there's just not enough knowledge about that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes. 5+2 industries, I mean the innovative initiatives, it's covering the area like biomedical, green energy, defense industries, and smart machinery, and the last is Asian Silicon Valley. It's all about ICT, it's Asian Silicon Valley. And the 2+2 is new agriculture, and I believe one other is the recycle economy. And why this 5 industry is so important? For example, the smart machinery industry that I mentioned in my speech, we have a very comprehensive cluster of a smart machinery or the machinery tool or precision machinery industry in that area. The whole cluster, a very complete cluster in Dadu Valley. And last year alone, the progress of this industry is 25% increase in their total amount of production, and it becomes the third, trillion NT dollars industry in Taiwan, the third one. Okay, and so that smart machine industry initiative proved to be a very successful one. Now Taiwan is ranked number 4 in terms of exporting the smart machinery to abroad. And the other three is, on the top is, I believe it's German and Japan and Italy. And those three countries, are those countries responsible for the World War II. And since they have the ability to launch the war, that means they are very strong in the machinery industry. And Taiwan now follow the suit. So that proves Taiwan is a strong power in the industry, in this industry. And also we mentioned about the defense industry. Defense industry is so important because besides the sufficient supply of weapons from United States important, but also our determination and our determination in self-sufficiency of to make weapon, for the defense purpose is also very important. And above all, if we developed the weapon system ourselves to certain level, that makes U.S. is more willing to sell arms, especially the advanced arms, to Taiwan. Since we are almost reached to that level, so there's no other choice for United States but to sell arms to Taiwan. So that helps the stability, the regional stability in that area. Okay. And also, the biotech and the green energy, those are all very important, and we have a lot of talents. We have a lot of talented people in this area, and we are confident that we are, by this kind of effort, we are able to upgrade our industry, and so we are going to upgrade Taiwan.
Okay, super. That's helpful. We need the background to understand these initiatives, because when Americans are trying to figure out how to engage Taiwan, and it's important to know what Taiwan's priorities are and strengths. I have two other questions, and I want to bring you both in to both of these. The first is about the uncertainty that you mentioned and the unpredictability that Wendy mentioned. It's also part of this. The U.S.-China economic relationship is going through a difficult period, and the entire bilateral relationship, in fact. I'm curious, what has been the reaction from Taiwanese industry, those that are on the island, those that are in across the strait investing in China and elsewhere? And then I'd be interested to hear from Wendy's follow-up and how the reaction of Taiwanese compares to how Korean companies or others in the region or elsewhere are responding to this uncertainty or unpredictability, to see if how the Taiwanese are responding looks similar or different from others. So if I could turn to you first.
I think the business community doesn't like uncertainty. They hate uncertainty. And this trade conflict is certainly generating a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, we believe in fair trade and don't like tariff or taxes. But uncertainty is even worse than these things. And talk about the reaction from the Taiwanese people. As I mentioned in my speech, Taiwanese business people are the most agile and flexible business people in the world. They already make the adjustment, long before the announcement of the Trump's new trade policy. And nowadays in Taiwan, Taiwanese businessmen are very quiet, but they move very swiftly, tacitly. And they are very sensitive to this issue. I try to have some deep interview with them, but they don't talk too much. But they react, and they move very quickly. As I say, they have 3 options. Move and relocate to Southeast Asia, and then move back to Taiwan, just like a salmon swimming back to the home. And the third is here, to invest here in the United States. As I said, we sent the largest delegation in this year's investment summit, USA summit here in the United States, and they are located. A lot of companies planning to invest here in the United States. Many companies told me about this, and I think you'll see in the coming year, the flow of Taiwanese businessmen into the United States and to make an investment here.
Wendy?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great question. And, I was struck when I was preparing for this talk, I think it's 40% of Taiwan's exports go to mainland China.
Yes.
And so the ties are very strong, and the Taiwan companies are a real part of the supply chain of China. I sense that initially a lot of companies here and in Asia really thought that what the U.S. was experiencing with China on the trade front was going to be a short-lived phenomenon. So I think initially there was kind of some denial that there would be threats of tariffs, but then the two sides would get to the table, a deal would be made, and then we'd kind of get back to a situation where businesses could trade without having to think about what these tariff increases might entail. However, I think that's really changing. I think that people are beginning to really understand that this tariff world is here to stay for a while, and particularly with the announcement, it seems like it was a few weeks ago, but I think it was just last week when we put the $200 billion worth of tariff increases into place. China responded with $60 billion. And so we're in a world now where I'm sure in the boardrooms all around Asia and in the United States, companies are trying to figure out how they cope in this world, how they continue to operate their businesses successfully. And I think they face the choices that you've outlined. What do? Do you kind of cope with your current supply chains? Do you look to diversify and maybe find other places in Asia to move to? And I think that's easier said than done if you already have facilities there, and so you can kind of ramp up your production or your sourcing from those facilities. Or else, you come back to, or for U.S. companies, you bring your facilities back and production facilities back to the United States, or or perhaps for other companies, you move to the United States. So I think those types of decisions now and planning are now being done in corporate boardrooms all around the world. In addition, I would just add that I think that governments are also trying to figure out what to do in this world. A lot of Asian countries are, very reliant on trade with the U.S. and also trade with China. They are already impacted by these tariff increases and stand to experience more and more impacts. And I think given the unpredictability of the U.S. as a trading partner, combined with concerns about China as a trading partner, is leading many governments to reassess their current slate of trading partners and trying to reduce dependence on both of the two major trading partners, the U.S. and China. And so I think we're going to see that phenomenon take root more as looking ahead.
That makes sense. I can just I can add an answer to my own question based on my trips to China, which have been several this year. And I think in addition to seeing the reactions that both of you identify, I'm also seeing companies bifurcate their businesses. China-oriented business, and then their global business, their non-China business.
Yes.
So I think you're seeing there's going to be a range of reactions that include the companies doing one thing or a combination of responses. Last question I want to ask, and I really appreciate the patience of the audience, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk more about what your top priority is on this trip. You mentioned the bilateral trade agreement, and so I know Wendy said that there's issues about whether what to resolve before you get to the full negotiations or resolve them. I guess my question would be, could you tell us a little bit more about why it would be important to what would be sort of the top items in a BTA? Or is it just about having a BTA regardless of the contents? So what would be the sort of the top substantive things that would be of benefit to Taiwanese businesses or the bilateral relationship that we don't have already from the very extensive ties which you outlined?
I think to sign a BTA with the United States is extremely important because if we sign the BTA with United States, it will facilitate us to sign other free trade agreement with other countries. Other countries will easily follow the suit. And also, of course, the United States market is the biggest market eventually, for every country eventually. I mean, for example, although our export is 40% to China, but I think it's perhaps half of them it's intermediate goods, and that in the later will transform into the product that's shipped to United States, so-called triangle trade. So if we sign a BTA with United States, that will facilitate the Taiwanese businessmen move back to Taiwan or move to here in United States. That's mutual beneficial to Taiwan and the United States. And most of all, if we did that, there's no other force that can stop us to signing a BTA or signing a free trade agreement with other country. So that's vital, most important issue for Taiwan nowadays. And I want to answer, to Ms. Wendy Cutler's comment on the difficulty to shift the supply chain, the shift of supply chain. I asked the same question to Taiwanese businessmen, and they said, actually, the shift of the supply chain is very easy for them. It's very easy for them. It's a surprise to them. And they move much more quick than you thought.
Depends on the industry, though.
Yeah, I know, but seems to me the various industry that I talk, they are very confident, and they already made a preparation long before the announcement of a new trade policy here in the United States.
Wow. Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's turn things to the audience now. If you've got a question, please raise your hand. A microphone will come your way. We have an audience online as well. When the microphone arrives, just identify yourself. And if you could keep your question to a question, we're going to start right up here in the front row. Microphone is coming your way, ma'am.
My question is, you spoke about how Taiwan reflects American values, and one of the American values is the empowerment of women, particularly an untapped market of $12 trillion. Can you tell me how Taiwan could perceive tapping into that market?
You mean the women's market? As you know, we have a women president in Taiwan, and this country is ruled by women. And my family is also ruled by women, by my wife. So the woman power in Taiwan actually is no problem at all. And now we have the equality in the so-called the Same-Sex Marriage Act. Right nowadays, advocated in Taiwan. And I think in the near future, 2 or 3 years, that will formally put in right into law. So I think in every aspect in Taiwan, I don't consider the woman empowerment issue is so it's to my opinion, in my opinion, it's not a serious problem, And our society have a high consensus that for sex equality is very important for a civilized society. So I think we'll do the progress on that.
Maybe we could turn to Wendy, since this is one of the issues that you've been working on for a while and as a priority at ASPE, to maybe put to tell people a little bit about what you're doing and maybe where Taiwan sits in that overall conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole issue of women's empowerment in Asia is very important. countries have, and economies have different records in terms of how successfully they're integrating women into the workforce.
Yes.
One thing that Taiwan has done, I believe, which I think has produced some very useful results in your legislature, is you've actually set quotas
Yeah.
for how many women.
We never use that quota because every time,
It's right.
yeah, it's far over than the quota. Yes.
Right, but other countries in Asia are really struggling. They don't have
That's right.
quotas, and,
That's right.
and I've heard some women say, and turn to Taiwan and say, well, maybe a quota approach would be helpful and would really
Yeah, but
allow.
some people also argue that the quota system is actually a discrimination against women.
Of course they do.
Because whenever you set out, you will nominate the woman candidate according to that quota. So it's not a problem in Taiwan now. A lot of women they just are very sharp, very active, and very able, better than men. Better than men.
Okay.
So you can. Dr. Tsai Ing-wen defeat every possible candidate inside the DPP. And so that's DPP's male candidate. They are all very, very tough, and so that's a clear indication that Taiwan's women's right. I think it's one of the top, in the Asian area. I have confidence in that.
And also note your president's also a former trade negotiator too. Yes, this is really tough.
Exactly.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes, the combination together. We're going to come right here in the front, and then we'll come back to you. Yes, right here.
Thank you. Rita Chen from Central News Agency, Taiwan. I have two questions. The first one is for the Vice Chairman. The United States and Japan just announced to start the BTA negotiation yesterday.
Yes.
From TAITRA's point of view, how will this development to affect the Taiwan's small and medium enterprise? And then for Wendy, the second one, the Ambassador Lighthizer also argued that United States can have a better deal with Japan through the BTA negotiation. From your point of view, and can America really get a better deal with Japan? And under Trump administration, do you think it's a good timing for Taiwan to start a BTA negotiation? Thank you.
Taiwan's small and medium-sized enterprise is a successful story in terms of economic development in Taiwan. It comprises 97% of our total number of company, and it also creates 75% of the total job in Taiwan. So that's very important. So as long as we have a successful BTA, with other countries or especially with the United States, certainly we will enhance, our trade relationship and enhance our trade amount. So that's will make the small and medium-sized enterprise better, and our government put a lot of focus on small and medium-sized enterprise, and that already become a model to developing country. Actually, a lot of developing countries come to visit Taiwan and learn the experience from Taiwan. Yes.
Wendy?
So with respect to the announcement yesterday between the United States and Japan, there's a new acronym we all need to learn. It's called TAG, the Trade Agreement on Goods. And my understanding is the TAG is different from a full-fledged FTA. It will focus on goods, and in the statement in particular, there was focus on what talks on agriculture and autos between the United States and Japan would entail. Up until yesterday, there was a real stalemate between the United States and Japan on whether to pursue trade negotiations in the TPP framework or bilaterally. That impasse was broken yesterday. Japan now has agreed to proceed with bilateral negotiations, but once again, I view it as at least the first stage as being a negotiation with a much more limited scope than a comprehensive FTA. At the same time, I think Japan achieved some of its objectives as well. Number one, it was given an assurance along the lines of the assurance that the European Union recently got with respect to getting a ceasefire on threats of auto tariff increases should the United States go forward with its 232 investigation. And second, and very importantly, and something I have thought would always need to be a key feature of any bilateral discussion between the United States and Japan, is that the United States basically has agreed that with respect to agricultural market access, the TPP and the Japan-EU commitments would be really the ceiling for agriculture. And I think politically that really allowed the Prime Minister to move forward with our President and to announce these negotiations tomorrow. I spent a lot of my career negotiating with Japan. I think what was achieved yesterday is really important, but I think there's a lot of hard work in front of the two countries. But I also think that by breaking this impasse and lowering trade tension between the United States and Japan is very important. And so, I welcome this new stage of negotiations. And with respect to your second question, I think I answered that during my brief remarks, and that is with respect to a U.S. Taiwan bilateral trade agreement, with this administration's emphasis on bilateral negotiations and the fact that there are many friends of Taiwan in senior levels in this administration, I think that bodes well for, at some point during the Trump administration, to at least explore the possibility of moving forward with bilateral trade negotiations between the U.S. and Taiwan.
Perfect. Okay, we have right here in the middle, Brian.
Good morning. My name is Max Trujillo. I'm a government relations consultant here in Washington. I want to commend you, Chairman Suo-Hang, for your comments regarding trade, although I must, coming from another island that loves baseball, Puerto Rico, I really commend your passion for the game. I wanted to ask if Taiwan, considering all the investment it has done in the U.S., sees the new tax reform bill law that was enacted this year and programs like the opportunity zones as a new zone or new area of investment that Taiwan can do in new areas of the United States, not just in Silicon Valley or other developed areas in the country. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a high possibility. Since we have a formal diplomatic relationship with the Caribbean area. We have about 13 countries that still have maintained the diplomatic relationship with Taiwan. And so that's very important for Taiwanese businessmen there. Actually, our government encouraged Taiwanese businessmen go there and to make an investment. And utilizing their geographical advantage, and also the NAFTA, and that perhaps is another destination for Taiwanese businessmen to do a good investment there. And our government will continue to encourage that. And especially, as you say, to set up kind of industrial zone. Taiwanese people is the expert, actually is the founder of the so-called industrial zone. We do that kind of job very well. Yes, thank you.
I think we've got time for one more question in the back here.
Hi, I'm a graduate student from American University. If the U.S. and Taiwan were to negotiate a bilateral trade agreement, will China stand in the way? And through what channels can China exert pressure on the negotiations?
I think both of you could contribute to that.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
She asked if the U.S. and Taiwan were to pursue negotiating a bilateral trade agreement, would China be able to stop the signing of it, and how might they do it? So I guess that gets to the feasibility of it, given sort of the global political environment.
Yeah, the obstacle for Taiwan to sign any FTA with any country, they all come from China. They all come from China. I have to speak that very honestly. Even we have a negotiation of TIFA here in the United States that was stopped years ago, for several reasons, and China, of course, is one of the reasons. And but in this in this period of time, I see some sort of chance, because with this trade war going on, China have to relax its tension, if there's any tension with other, nation, economic tension with other nations, because they have to face United States alone, or they have to face mainly they have to face to deal with the United States. So they have to, to improve their economic relations with other nations, that including Taiwan. So, so we have a better chance that if we're using this critical period of time, and also United States need us to support their Indo-Pacific strategy, or support their new trade norm. So I think it's also a good chance. The chance is getting better. So the obstacle from China is getting less, and the willingness of the United States to sign a BTA is getting stronger. So I think it's a good chance, much better chance for Taiwan to sign a BTA with the United States.
Okay. Well, thank you for the answer. Useful question. We've unfortunately come to the end of the program. What I take away, I guess, two things. There's certainly plenty of uncertainties and unpredictability, and in some places some certainties about challenges as well. But I think what your speech highlights, and the comments from Wendy elaborate on, is how vibrant the commercial relationship is between Taiwan and the United States, even in complex times like this. We really appreciate you, as part of your global travels, coming to Washington, coming to CSIS, and sharing your perspective and this extensive information. We really appreciate, Wendy, for you providing your insights and commentary and context today. If everyone could join me in thanking both of them.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.